Hello everyone and welcome to LEGO Star Wars Hot Takes episode 31. As always, if you have any hot takes or controversial opinions about LEGO Star Wars, make sure to go ahead and drop them down in the comments below for a chance to be featured in next week's video or whenever I make another hot takes video because it's usually never weekly. Regardless though, hopping right into it, this first one comes from Dark Knight. He says, hot take, the worst part of the Galactic Marines is their helmets. They just look too stiff. The snowtroopers have an amazing helmet mold that mimics the folds and waving of their helmets. The Galactic Marine helmets just look like a knockoff in my opinion. And I assume it's safe to say you're talking about the white chin area of the helmet that goes down over the torso. And yeah, you're actually completely right. It's not supposed to be stiff. It's supposed to be more of like a cloth mask that goes over their chin and down their torso. And on these new Galactic Marines, yeah, that's not really replicated that well, especially when you look at it from a side angle. And also, like you said, if you look at the most recent Snowtroopers LEGO has made, I think these came out in 2021 or 2022, their helmets are obviously still hard molded plastic, but there are waves in the chin area that does kind of make it look like it resembles cloth. And the Galactic Marines helmets are also supposed to look like this, but they don't. So yeah, it's definitely kind of annoying that LEGO could do it with the Snowtroopers, but they couldn't do it with the Galactic Marines. However, despite being inaccurate, I wouldn't say the helmet that they did use is bad, and I also definitely wouldn't say it's the worst part about these figures. I still think the worst part is the lack of a physical wastegate. This next one comes from Colocanovo, I guess that's how you say your name. He says, it's stupid that builds with more parts give smaller results. Like the U-Wing 2016 set, it has more pieces than some recent builds, which are smaller than the aforementioned U-Wing. And then he actually went on to say it's better to have a larger LEGO set than a smaller one with more detail. And believe it or not, this is actually a pretty heated debate in the community right now. People are actually questioning if more detail and more intricate builds is better for these new sets since it hinders their size. And you pretty much just described it perfectly. Yeah, a lot of the older sets, specifically sets from about 10 years ago, released within 2014 to 2020, those sets often had the same number of piece counts as sets releasing today, but they're a lot bigger, while as the sets today are often smaller, but they're way more intricate and the builds are way more accurate and way more heavily designed and more structurally sound. And this is very much a subjective thing. It kind of just comes down to what you prefer, a more heavily designed and detailed set or a larger and more fun set. And honestly, I personally go back and forth between which one I prefer, because on one side, I really do appreciate the level of detail on the modern sets because they just look incredible. But on the other side, I miss when sets were bigger. Specific examples like the TIE Fighters and the X-Wings. I missed when the TIE Fighters were like $70 sets that were pretty big starships, not some crappy disproportional ones that are just so lame in comparison to the old ones. But then on the other hand, you have a set like the 2024 Star Destroyer, which I personally think is the best play-scale Star Destroyer LEGO has made. I don't care that it's smaller than the 2014 Star Destroyer because it looks so good. It's a beautiful model. And I can also say this about sets like the Ghost and Phantom 2 from 2023 compared to the original Ghost from 2014, and actually even despite it being overpriced, the newest MTT compared to the 2014 MTT and even the 2007 MTT. So again, it really just comes down to which side of the fence you stand on. And obviously, if LEGO designed sets as intricately as they are today and made them larger, they would be super expensive. So the way to make them larger without the price going up would literally be to kind of take a step backwards in the design level of these sets and go back to a less detailed but larger design style like they used in the mid 2010s, which I think most people prefer. This next one is a good one. It comes from Azriel the Crusader. He says, hot take, the Phase 1 clone is superior to the Phase 2 clones. I think this is more of a Star Wars hot take in full rather than just a LEGO Star Wars thing. This is actually kind of a tricky one to answer, but I think in Star Wars, most people consider Phase 2 clones to be better than Phase 1 clones, mainly because there's just more variety, leading to more clones that just look cooler than the Phase 1 clones. And I think this translates perfectly over to LEGO. When they're both done perfectly, I think the majority of people are going to favor the Phase 2 clones over the Phase 1 clones just because there's more variety. However, the thing is, current LEGO Phase 2 clones are not good, and current LEGO Phase 1 clones are good. Like I said, when they're both done perfectly, I think the Phase 2 clones are superior, but with the current state of LEGO Star Wars, the Phase 1 clones are a lot better than the current Phase 2 clones. And I say current Phase 1 clones like the last time they released them wasn't in 2022, but you still get the point. The most recent Phase 1 clones are a lot better than the most recent Phase 2 clones. And I'd say the biggest thing is the helmets. The modern Phase 1 clones look good, they're actually aesthetically pleasing, and and they have helmet holes so you can put attachments on them. Who would have thought that you can make a helmet look good and have functionalities at the same time? But then you look at the Phase 2 clones and they only look good with helmet attachments. Without helmet attachments, their helmet holes are ugly as crap. They're not aesthetically pleasing at all. And I think this is the main reason that with the current state of LEGO Star Wars, Phase 1 clones are better than Phase 2 clones, just because LEGO does them right. And because LEGO does the Phase 1 clone troopers right and seemingly doesn't really care to do the Phase 2 clone troopers right, I really wish we would just get more Phase 1 clone troopers because they look perfect. The clone commander they released in 2021 is literally one of my favorite figures of all time. I think it looks gorgeous, and I wish for a little bit LEGO would just ditch the Phase 2 clone troopers and make more of these guys. I would love to see the lieutenant, the captain, and the sergeant, as well as other Phase 1 clone troopers, just more regulars, some commanders like a Phase 1 Rex, a Phase 1 Cody. I think the majority of the LEGO fanbase would be a lot happier with those figures than they would be with the current state of Phase 2 clone troopers. So to reel it all back to your comment, I do think in Star Wars and when LEGO figures, when they're done perfectly, Phase 2 clone troopers are better, but with the current state of LEGO, Phase 1 clone troopers are better. This next one comes from Lawrence Murphy. He says, really hot take, summer 2023 is one of the top waves of all time. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure 2023 was like a blend of summer and fall sets. There were a few sets that released on August 1st and a few other sets that released on September 1st and a month later, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume you're talking about all of them. And I don't know if I'd call it a top wave of all time. I think there's definitely some waves I can think of off the top of my head that are better, like the January 2014 wave, along with the summer 2014 wave, the 2008 Clone Wars wave, the 2005 Revenge of the Sith wave, and even last year 2024's August wave. But summer 2023 definitely was one for the books. There was a lot of talk around these sets at the time. Now, it wasn't always good stuff. Most of these sets were super controversial, but at the very least, it was memorable, and these sets were getting a ton of attention. The few sets that were released in August are kind of forgettable, in my opinion. It was just, like a battle pack, a mech, a starfighter, and that Yavin 4 set. But the three big sets that were released in September, yeah, those were actually pretty fire. Off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it was the Ghost and Phantom 2, the Coruscant Guard gunship, along with the Shin Hati starfighter versus E-Wing. I'd honestly say all three of those sets are bangers. At the time, the Coruscant Guard gunship was getting a lot of backlash, but I think honestly, now being 2 years later, I think it's grown on a lot of people. It's definitely grown on me a lot. Obviously, excluding the clone troopers, especially Commander Fox, I think the build itself is a great set. It's super sleek and detailed and a fun build, and honestly, the colorway has grown on me quite a bit. So again, I wouldn't say this is one of the best waves of all time, but it was definitely memorable, and there was a lot of attention on these sets. Anyways though, this last one comes from J-Pop Flicks. He says, hot take, the 2004 clone troopers are very overrated. I assume you're talking about the 2005 clone troopers. But anyways, he says the helmets are bulky and the printing is not very good. It's just nostalgia bias. And then he goes on to say, and the current stormtroopers are pretty good with a good body and good helmet. And I guess I'll start with the 2005 Phase 2 clone troopers. And yeah, obviously I think the reason most people like these is because of nostalgia bias. And I don't even think that's like a hot take. I think most people genuinely realize they just like them because of nostalgia and because they look retro, which is just cool. I mean, obviously compared to the clone troopers we got later on, especially in like 2014, they're not much, but they're still just so fan favorited among the community just because it's what a lot of us grew up with and because they look retro. So yeah, it basically is just nostalgia. However, about the helmets being bulky, I'm not entirely sure if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure these clone troopers are based off the Phase 2 clone troopers that were in the 2003 Clone Wars cartoon. And if you've seen that cartoon, you know that the helmets on the Phase 2 clone troopers look a lot different than the helmets that are in episode 3. They're actually quite a bit bigger and quite a bit bulkier, and they look a lot like, I'd even say almost identical to the Phase 2 clone trooper helmets that were released at that time. And I've just heard a lot of people claim that the source material for the original Phase 2 clone troopers were the Phase 2 clone troopers from the Clone Wars cartoon. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but I mean, they do look very similar, so I'd say it's a pretty good educated guess. And then about the stormtroopers, I mean, I don't agree with that. I don't like the new stormtroopers. I mean, I've been saying that ever since they released. The helmet's too big and droopy. It kind of looks like a bulldog or a pug or something, like the face has been smashed in. And especially from the side angle where the helmet like dramatically droops down over the torso at like this 90-degree angle, it just looks kind of ridiculous in my opinion. And also it's annoying because you can't turn the helmet side to side, so you can't really pose these guys either. So yeah, my opinion on the modern Family Guy stormtroopers is not changing. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. As always, if you have any hot takes or controversial opinions about LEGO Star Wars, make sure to go ahead and drop them down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you can see on the screen right now.